Hello, my name is Haley, and this presentation is for the film Portrait of a Poet. For background, we have the film was directed by Lee Jong-ik and released February 17th of the year 2016. For fun facts, the film Portrait of a Poet won 17 prestigious awards in the years 2016 and 2017 around its release. It won such awards like Best Screenplay and Best Production, and of course several others. And for the cast, we have Kang Han-well as Young Dong-ju, Park Jeon-min as Sung Mong-gyu, Kim In-woo as the detective, Chu Hee-seo as Kumi, Shin Yoo-jo as Lee Yo-jin, Min Jin-wang as Kang Jeo-jun, Choi Hong as Dongju's father, Lee Bit-na as Dongju's younger sister, and Moon Sung-kyun as Jang Ji-young. For a little bit more regarding the story, we are introduced to the cousins Sung Mong-gyu and Yoon Dongju, and by following them in their daily lives, we learn that Dongju is a poet. Although both of the cousins are writers and believe strongly in the power of literature. The cousins end up going to study in Japan at separate schools. As we continue to follow the two in their daily lives as they continue their studies and learn and make friends, we learn more about each cousin and their characters, as well as their close relationship. Mong-gyu is the more outgoing, compared to Dongju, who is more reserved and quiet. They continue going about their days while doing separate activities outside of school. Dongju chooses to write his poems quietly, while Mong-gyu joins the Korean independence movement and plots against Japan. Eventually, Mong-gyu gets caught, and both cousins are arrested for his actions. We are shown as Mong-gyu and Dongju spend the rest of their lives in jail, and eventually die due to be given unknown injections. A little more on the main characters, some of their qualities and actions. More on Mong-gyu. He is the outgoing and bold activist. He is the academic scholar of his family. He gets into the prestigious school in Japan and chooses to go study. He demonstrates strong nationalism and chooses to join the Korean independence movement and plot against Japan. His bold, outgoing actions and choices throughout the film make major waves in the plot and ultimately lead to the tragic end for both of the cousins. More on Dongju, as he is the reserved and quiet poet. He chooses to write his poetry quietly as a form of expression. He's also the victim throughout the film. When studying in Japan, he is constantly the victim to racism in the classroom, whether it be microaggressions or the time he was singled out and scalped in his class. Additionally, he is the victim of his cousin's actions, as he is arrested by association, even though he was not directly involved in the plot against Japan. Lastly, he is the victim of tragedy, as he is arrested and dragged away before his poems could be published. Dongju and Mong-gyu have a close relationship. Dongju stays with Mong-gyu for a majority of the movie. He continues to go with him, keeps writing poetry, goes where he goes, until he finally has a great opportunity for himself. The opportunity to get his poems published, so he couldn't go with Mong-gyu immediately. For historical context, the film takes place during the Japanese colonial era, specifically the 1930s to the 1940s. The film takes place at the end of the Japanese colonial era, but there is still strong racism shown against Koreans. There is also a ban on the Korean language that made the new formal or mainstream language of Korea to be Japanese. Speaking or writing in Korean could have consequences. Korean was also no longer taught in schools, and Japan began to enforce a name change policy where the citizens must change their names from Korean names to Japanese names. The Korean independence movement maintained a strong presence, but Japan was very determined to eliminate any form of resistance. Lastly, we are shown the poor and inhumane treatment of prisoners as Mongyu and Dongju are in jail. They do not receive good food or conditions and were receiving unidentified injections that were very harmful and caused their deaths. For my insights, I noticed that the film is shot in black and white and also produced in 2016. So the black and white format must have been a choice. I believe the choice was made to symbolize or foreshadow the impending tragedy in the end. I also noticed a flashback format to the characters' school days and a back and forth between the cousins' time in prison. It helps the audience to put together the story in a more unique fashion with the flashes of the actions that led up to the consequences. The audience is also exposed to Dongju's poetry as he reads through narration at certain points in the film. They are strong symbols of Dongju's expression and true feelings towards his circumstances, and used to form a greater connection between the character and the audience. I noticed the call to attention to racism through the micro and mega aggressions Dongju faced in his class, the call to attention to the Korean independence movement is shown for the audience to be made aware of the strength and determination of the movement, and that is still present and remains strong even in Japan. The call to attention of prisoner cruelty being shown to the audience for them to be made aware that such harsh treatment existed during that time and place. Lastly, there was a sad ending where Dongju was arrested and died before he would see his poems get published. It was truly a surprise to me in how a relationship that he cherished could be his downfall in that manner. We are truly led to see the differences in these characters as the film continues. They are both writers who strongly believe in the power of literature and use it differently throughout the film. They cherish their relationship and stay close, although it may not have been the best thing for them in the end. Lastly, in the end is where their true parallels show, as they share their contradicting regrets before Dongju dies first. Mongyu regretting not being able to change anything and dragging Dongju into danger, and Dongju regretting only being a poet and not being a leader more like Mongyu. One last thing is that the film has allowed me to learn. The film is a visual representation of Korean civilian life during the Japanese colonial era, but from two perspectives, as some people chose to take action and join the Korean independence movement like Mongyu, while others chose to live through it and quietly hope for the independence of their country like Dongju. The film shows the harsher conditions of living in Japan compared to living in Korea under the same rule, as the characters did not change their names up until the point where they decided to study in Japan. The film also repeatedly shows the cruelty of Japan through the racism, poor treatment of prisoners, and the language ban. Lastly, the film shows the realism in terms of the relationship dynamics of the cousins and tragedy. The cousins had been close their whole lives and even went to Japan together. But right as Dongju seems to be making real progress for himself, things begin to fall apart for Mongyu. Mongyu's downfall also causes the downfall of Dongju by association. Yes, the film is tragic, but it is also realistic. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope you enjoy the film Portrait of a Poet.